Good afternoon and welcome everyone to Worth in our next normal series. My name is Paul Stamoulis, Executive Officer of Worth Media, and it is my complete pleasure to welcome you to today's program, where each week we delve into a different sector. We understand the business impact. We try to understand how both consumers and businesses are themselves transforming and adapting to the future. We are so fortunate to have such an engaged community and grateful you could all join us here at Worth Live. We hope you're staying safe and healthy during this time. Before we begin the program, just a few housekeeping items. You've heard this many times before. First, everybody will be on mute. If that's not the case, we just ask that you look down and do so now to avoid any tech issues. And then second, as Jim alluded earlier in our prep, this is a conversation. We have some great folks here today. We want to make sure that we try to get to as many questions as you can. So to do that, simply change your chat function to all panelists and attendees, and we'll reach out to you directly. If you prefer myself or others to ask the question on your behalf, just add an asterisk. With that, we can now turn to today's topic, which among other things is meant to bring forward a bit of the holiday spirit for us all, I hope, and that's the topic of gifts and giving. This season will clearly be very different for us all, and the need to spread joy and cheer through gifts and giving will take on even more importance in these times of distancing and isolation. To understand that better, we ourselves are gifted with a great set of panelists today. And first up, we have Oliver Chen. Oliver is a managing director and top equity research analyst with Cowen, covering retail and luxury goods, and we can tell so because he looks fantastic in a suit and tie. Oliver, I hope you're doing well.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Next up is a writer, blogger, speaker, and just all around brilliant brand strategist, Adam Haft, well known to Jim and a few of us here today. Adam, hopefully you're doing well. You look good.
Doing great. Happy to be here. And if you give me a minute, I'll go get a tie.
Not necessary. I did mention you were brilliant. So speaking of brilliance, where we also have Kathy Etwistle. Kathy is managing director and senior wealth advisor with Morgan Stanley, also a valued partner in our next normal series. Kathy, you look lovely, so don't worry about it. You two are brilliant and beautiful.
Thanks, Paul.
And then moderating today's conversation, someone that just happens to know a little bit about gifting and giving himself, Worth Media chairman and 1-800-Flowers founder, Jim McCann. Jim, I did not say brilliant, so please don't be upset. And I know you had to do some research for today, so I hope you come prepared with these set of guests.
Well, there is no prepping with this set of guests. They're terrific, and they'll bring a lot to the table. I told you, Paul, that we had a prep session the other day, and I just wish we could bottle that, because the wisdom that we're going to get from these three guests, Kathy, Adam, and Oliver, is just it's of great value, and more than that, it's fun. And I'm so lucky in my life that I get to hang around with smart people, and you too, Paul.
I'm going for the good-looking side. The smart, not so
I'm
much.
getting back at you for that. But Kathy, as you know, Oliver looks like he's wearing a suit and tie, but we know in Oliver's world, those are pajamas.
Absolutely.
Let's jump right into it. Oliver, we got you on the spot here. You research and cover the world of retail and luxury, like few others. Frankly, the things you write become Bible for us at Flowers. Your understanding of how retail has been evolving. I remember 2 years ago, you wrote the 9 rules for the next generation of retail. And we studied it in our shop and we passed it around time after time after time, because you just so got where the world was going. And then COVID changes everything. So Paul so insightfully said at the top of this that everything's going to be different now. What are the big macro differences that COVID's caused in the world that you pay such close attention to?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim. Great to be here with Kathleen and Adam. So one of the big things is the return of the store.
Paul. It's not that good to be here with Paul.
Paul's lovely as well. The return of the store, the bricks plus clicks thesis. And what that really means is curbside pickup as well at Walmart, Target in particular. Also the big getting bigger, because we're seeing trip consolidation as you go to fewer places and store traffic continues to be an issue. So that's something that's happening with less is more and offering a consumer a one-stop shop. Safety is more important than ever, as well as the contactless experience. So that's a big focus. I would also say artificial intelligence and personalization, as the omni-channel experience is a connected experience. It also collects data, and data and customer interaction is helping retailers and brands become better and prescriptive in many ways. That does open it up to different issues around privacy and what's best for the consumer. So that's a topic. Another major topic for us is what I call STAR, which, what does that mean for a new
And
generation?
this is where you're so good, Oliver. You take a very complex subject and you make it understandable by us normal people. And STAR is an example of that. Please give us some
STAR
color.
is helpful for me, and I do these things because I write my own note cards out and I'm trying to remember some frameworks. But STAR is sustainability, transparency, authenticity, and re-commerce. So if you really break those down, they really tie into what Gen Z and younger and older customers care about. Sustainability matters in so many ways across the entire supply chain. It matters as far as the health of your supply chain and the transparency of your supply chain, and also what your carbon footprint is happening there. Transparency in ingredients, authenticity, thinking about racial injustice and diversity and inclusion and body positivity. And re-commerce. Re-commerce is not anything new, but it is new in that a lot of the platforms are really enabled by technology. So the Real, Rent the Runway, the Uberification of retail, those are all major things. I mean, gift
Kathy,
me is
Kathy, are you seeing evidence of that in your household? The whole regifting thing, Oliver, you've been talking about it for years. And it seems like it's just risen in prominence in the COVID environment. Kathy, do you see evidence in your world of re-commerce being acceptable, embraced? Is it generational in your world? Do you see younger people being more into it?
I would say I agree. Younger people definitely are embracing it more and being sort of the thought leaders for the older generations to follow. So I'm not saying old generations, I'm just saying older generations. But yeah, so I do see that happening. I think it's more acceptable. And the more conversations we have about all of these items that are in the STAR theory, sustainability and authenticity and so forth, those are all really powerful expressions of people's values and priorities right now.
Well, Adam, it just seems like it makes it much more complicated to be a business leader now. When you run down that list, I couldn't help but agree with everything you said there, Oliver. But Adam, as a business leader, and you counsel so many, the world just got a lot more complicated, no?
Yes. I think that from a consumer point of view, if you're going to run your life by STAR and you were going to make decisions based on a synthesis of what those considerations are, life is also very complicated, right? Because you don't have, how much time you're going to spend researching some of these things. Plus, there's a lot of complexity around each one of them. So what I think is interesting is the way the consumers will use cognitive shortcuts to jump to conclusions. And that's basically how we make decisions in general.
Give me an example of a cognitive shortcut.
Cognitive shortcut, okay, let's take the Method brand, right? You look at the Method brand, which is Karen Rashid designed it, beautiful. It looked like no other cleaning line in the world, right? It felt like a work of art. It was kind of fetishable. You looked at it and your brain said, this looks like it was created by people who care about sustainability, who care about authenticity. You don't even look at the back to read the ingredients because, in fact, your brain says this is okay. Now, there could be a product that looks like an old school cleaning product that actually has fewer toxic ingredients, that was made and produced more sustainably, but your brain doesn't draw that conclusion because you rely on your existing sort of neural substrates. And that's how we make decisions. That's how people make political decisions. That's how we make choices of all kinds. That's why this entire discipline of behavioral psychology, which won Dan Kahneman a Nobel Prize, exists because our brains are not wired for a lot of work. We default to our fast brain, and that's a cognitive shortcut. And our slow brain, which is the cortex, doesn't always kick in. So as a marketer, and your question was about as leaders, as marketers, how do we relate to this complex world? Well, to be opportunistic about it, we create cognitive shortcuts that let the consumer's fast brain work. That's why certain products do well on Instagram, because they are visually beautiful, they have all the right signals, and you buy them without investigating. So the tension, I think, between what Oliver said, which is we want to know more, and the way the human brain works is we want to know less.
Oliver, it seems to me that a couple of announcements we've seen, and I just tuned into this week, for example, Walmart, largest retailer in the world. In the last 7 weeks, they've bowed out of place-based retail in 3 different, I think it was, international markets. They kept a piece, but they sold the majority of the business to focus on the digital side of digital commerce there. And the second part of that is here, where they have an enormous distribution and retail footprint. They're repurposing so much of that to focus on their e-commerce deliverable capability. Is that an example of a company that you watch that you think is putting their capital behind the right future ideas?
Yeah, Walmart and Target and Costco are some of our top ideas.
And Target blew away their numbers the other day, didn't they?
Yeah, and we like Louis Vuitton and Peloton too, as you think about community. But what's happening in retail is really the development of platforms and ecosystems. So Walmart Plus, the membership program, Walmart as a healthcare provider and pharmacy, and Walmart as a leading food and grocer are all parts of the puzzle. And that ties into consumer engagement as well as trust. What Adam was saying also makes me think about trust. And do you trust this brand? Do you trust this retailer? Why or why not? You know, can luxury exist on Amazon? Why or why not? You know, so there's a lot of questions and opportunities around trust. And as that intersects with Generation Z, there's new ideas of what it means to be customer centric. And customer centricity is constantly evolving. That's what makes retail awesome. You know, the mall was the original internet.
You've long liked the leadership and the companies and the performance of Target and Walmart. How do they carve out different cognitive shortcuts to mean different things to different consumers? How do you think they do that?
Well, Walmart stuck with EDLP, everyday low pricing. So it stands for value, and also, you know, really helping consumers live better lives through value, and also making sure, analytically speaking, their price gaps are authentic in each market. Target is very well known as a great creator of private brands, and their private brands can really ignite and grow quickly because the consumer trusts that Target merchandising ability. And the shortcut at Target is Target, in terms of Target offering you a premium experience at a value price. So, you know, and then save money, live better at Walmart. So I love the delight of retail and brands and how they evolve. And, you know, as a brand and as an innovator, you have to balance heritage versus the future, because Walmart was in a tough, horrible spot versus Amazon, and it's really innovated, and through problems come opportunities. But management has to be agile, and Walmart plus TikTok is quite novel, rethinking this demand creation model, authenticity and what's real and what's not, what's fake and what's real, in a world of influencers relative to experts. So these are all topics that excite me about the sector.
You know, what's interesting about Target is their shortcut is Target was product and style, and Walmart is more about service, innovation, delivery. But, you know, if you think about the original transformation of Target from basically a schlocky Kmart-like retailer into what Target is today, it all comes down to the famous Michael Graves teapot, right? One of their buyers said, we're going to make a deal with Michael Graves, the architect. He's going to design this teapot that's going to make chic affordable. And there were full-page ads in the New York Times. That was the first step they took. Might be before your time. It was a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, design for all. So the democratization of design.
Right, which comes from the Bauhaus model.
Yeah.
And it just shows you how people sometimes say, well, how do you change a big enterprise like a Target? Sometimes you can do it with one powerful symbol that cascades throughout both the organization and the marketplace. And it sets the stage for more and more. And Target, I think, is the best example of that. Walmart's never really had private label that has succeeded at all to the extent that Target has done. I think it's also just Target has more of a merchandising sensibility at the high level, and I don't think Walmart does.
So Oliver, you introduced the question before of can super luxury live on Amazon? Clearly it can in the real, which makes that of value. Answer the question you asked.
I mean, the main thing about luxury is making you forget about price. The main thing about Amazon is dynamic, rapid pricing and matching. So the objective for Louis Vuitton is to create a sumptuous environment so perfect that price becomes a less of an object or not, in store.
If you have to ask.
I mean, in the question, and luxury is emotional. It's quite emotional, and it's bricks plus clicks. The interesting challenge is recreating luxury online and how that happens. And there's push and pull with real convenience, tactical factors. And the emotional factor has been a little tricky in terms of getting the smell and touch, online. But live streaming is interesting. What's happening in luxury is far-fetched is an idea we like. In many ways, it's the Amazon of luxury. But you need a distinct kind of emotional presence there. And luxury is a small group of elite brands. So
Yes.
supply matters too. It's not necessarily fragmented. The top brands are Chanel, Vuitton, Hermes, and Richemont and Cartier. So supply gathering is pretty critical. So platforms and distinction matters. Although Amazon would love to be in this high margin sector. Farfetch, Net-a-Porter, others, have distinctive opportunities with moats.
Oliver, can I ask a question? I'm curious how the luxury market is getting that across today, like you were saying, because walking in to a luxury store and having that experience of the smell and the touch and the way that you're treated and so forth, and removes a lot of the price issues, right? But how are they creating that online, and do you see that as sustainable going forward?
Yeah, I think we're at a crossroads. So it's accelerating no matter what because of mobile in China and Tmall, and the Chinese consumer is 30% of consumption or 50 to 70% of growth. So convenience matters. So, for the guy going to Tiffany, I mean, he doesn't really want to wait in line that badly and just wants trust the SA. So there should be more buy online, pick up in store, reserve in store actions to automate that for him. Emotionally speaking, it's still a TBD because a lot of the runway shows haven't necessarily delivered that heightened sensitivity online as offline. Stores will what's really been happening is intensification of retail space. So the Maison has to be bigger and bigger and better and a church to the brand. That's one thing that's been happening with consolidation of the physical headquarters of a Cartier or Vuitton. Another thing that's been happening is luxury really changing with streetification and versatility in the way the customer's dressing now today, and being thoughtful and mindful of that kind of innovation to the younger customer, such as Supreme. Supreme was sold to VF Corp, but that's an example of re-commerce and kids intersecting almost like baseball trading cards with retail. But the future is going to be a combination where stores will be the big important thing is the connected experience. So your interaction with Tiffany on your phone, on store, and online, and really the retail burden on luxuries to connect it all. But we'll see a lot more to come.
That was the word I was thinking of too, Oliver. Connection. Like, we want to be connected, whether it's to the brands that we're purchasing or wearing, or like for me, connecting with clients and understanding how to connect with them in this virtual world too, when we're used to face-to-face meetings, and now we've got to come up with a different plan. So I think that's really valuable, connecting.
And Nordstrom's another good example. Nordstrom Local, Nordstrom, they actually have one of the biggest food operations in America. They're the biggest hire of tailors. So if you combine service end-to-end store, and your sales associate can work with you on social media to determine your style board. So there's a lot of things happening, essentially coming back to what you said, Kathleen, and connecting it for the customer.
Yeah, that is sort of the Pinterestification of luxury too. You know, I spent some time yesterday on the Louis Vuitton site in anticipation of this event. And what struck me is that they do a really beautiful job of creating an immersive environment that looks like it could be Architectural Digest or a traditional publisher. And you feel like you're part of something very aesthetically elevated. But when you get to the actual product, it's a tremendous come down. There's a big gap between the brand story and the product story. And I think there's a huge need and opportunity for just a richer, more VR, AR presentation of products. You know, when you go into a store, a Vuitton store, let's say, and you have the right person selling, they will sell a handbag or Hermes, a Birkin bag, with the same degree of explication that a gallerist would if you're buying, you know, a $500,000 painting. The worship of the object and the backstory of the object adds so much value. You feel like you're lucky to be able to buy it, and you are actually. But when you buy something online at any of the luxury stores, it's a tremendous come down. So I think there's a real need for innovation there. And the fact that in China they're doing so much commerce there, it really shows the power of it shows two things. One, the power of the brand, because it's the brand that's driving the transaction. And two, a real lack of education and sort of caring and involvement by the consumer. They just want the brand. They're sort of, the Chinese are maybe a generation or two, I think, behind, let's say, American luxury buyers in terms of even pretending to care about what's behind the object. They just want the object. They just want the 30
Well,
Hermes scarf.
Adam, I think these factors intersect each other because brands, often the most powerful brands have really unique heritages, you know, whether that be Paris, whether that be the modern luxury of Tiffany and the pioneering sense of America. And brands are a shortcut. But this is all very emotional too. And the purchase is taking place because how things make you feel, because nobody needs any of it. Like we might need, you know, food and water and toilet paper, but you don't really need that small leather good or the watch. So
So what's the consequence now in this environment on luxury?
We're
not, you know, so Kathy's not bejeweled
right now.
and going out every Saturday night, showing off a new Birkin bag and a new jewelry. Like she does it on Thursday and Fridays now, but it's robust now.
It's very robust. I mean, the shortcut to the view here is what I've called the K economy, where you know the high end is very strong because the stock market performance has been good, and also strength at the high end with the Chinese consumer and the V-shaped recovery. At the lower end, you know, you have a customer seeking value. But today with Macy's, for example, there are a lot of pent-up weddings. There are a lot of pent-up celebrations. So people are itching to, you know, probably move on from stretchy clothes, even though stretchy clothes is pretty awesome, you know, and
you know, I think
jeans.
there's always the question of, are you buying the luxury item for yourself because you appreciate the craftsmanship and the value, or for external signaling? And the fact that you buy it for yourself because you appreciate the quality is the intellectual alibi. A lot of it is clearly bought because you want to take it out to dinner and to your next charity event. If you said to people, thought experiment, you're not going to be going out to any events, any restaurants, anything for the next year, would you see the same level of luxury purchase? You might, because there is a dopamine hit that comes from buying it, but I think the calibration between self-gratification and external reward is still a loose calculus. We haven't figured that out yet.
So what's the consequence this shopping season? Oliver, what's the consequence this shopping season with the K economy? You know, we have the at-home, experiential, all the things that you've talked about. How is that working its way in terms of our spending behavior now? You have a good indication of how this season's going.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I've said, zooming and cocooning and the at-home revolution. So really looking for ways to make your life better through this at-home revolution that's taking place. and that's key. It also means, practically speaking, like loungewear and things that are cozy and comfortable, from an apparel. But I think, the health and wellness movement, and what does that mean for also mindfulness and mental health, plays into what's happening here. And this whole theme of community and building communities, whether those be virtual or in person, is very important. And you see this juxtaposition of brands and tribes and brands and communities. So all these factors are important. Self-care and taking care of yourself and family in the form of beauty products is also very, very, very uptrending too. So there's a lot of different factors, but we're expecting a better than feared, relatively strong holiday season, just given what I've heard this week, Jim, across our retailers that we cover.
That's
And there's a lot,
interesting.
as we discussed, there's a lot of capital. People have, their savings rate is way up because they have not been able to spend on travel and other high ticket items. So now,
That's really interesting, that, look, if you're hurt, this is binary, the impact of this COVID. If you're a restaurateur, you're hurting and there's nothing you can do about it. But as you pointed out the other day, Adam, and Oliver gave us some examples, travel and leisure is obviously struggling, but that means we're not spending as much in those categories. So we have more, those who still are fortunate enough to have incomes and jobs and opportunity have more disposable income to spend. Are they going up ticket, fewer items? What will the basket look like, Adam? Is it more items, less items?
I think it's going to vary. I think that people divide into, I think gifting will be functional and fantastical. I think it'll be functional in terms of what you just described.
Kathy, are you writing all of these down?
I
can't keep
am,
up.
absolutely. I'm so sorry. No, I'm thinking about all this too, and I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize, but I would say that, I think it's going to be a healthy giving season, because there's less that we can connect on with the people that we want to see or be around. And I think this year we've all sort of reflected on where we are and where we want to be. And it's one of the few ways that we can express that we care for somebody by sending them flowers, calling 1-800-Flowers and sending them flowers, or.
Did I tell you recently that I love you? Have I mentioned that?
But I think that is how we can express right now. There's so many people that can't see their family members, and it's a way to, it's all about connecting. And there's only so many times that you can, say it. Sometimes we want to show it too, and providing a gift or a token of our, our appreciation or our love for a person. It's important, I think.
Yeah.
It seems like that functional, fantastical point that you were making, Adam, seems to overlay the K economy that Oliver talks about. There's a functional part of it. I assume that Lululemon's going to have a good season, yeah. Oliver?
Yeah, I think health and wellness and athletic leisure all matters. Just the way the consumer's changing, as well as what's happening now. And I agree with Adam. Like, you're looking for fantasy, you're looking for escape, but you're also looking to be practical.
Exactly.
So offering entry price points and like tons of value to the customer is critical, but you also need differentiation. It's a very crowded marketplace.
Yeah.
So
I also think I have a theory that says, because we're working more, and there's a lot of statistics, I saw some, last week and this week, that we're working more hours per day because we're working at home.
Yes, it used to be 9 to 5, and now it's 5 to 9.
Right. So we're working more hours, and we need breaks. And I think we're going to see this is the first season, obviously, we have that phenomenon. I think we're going to see, call them shopping breaks, where you'll take 10 minutes out from your now attenuated, very long day and buy something for somebody who normally you might not buy something for. And of course, we know that when you express yourself, and Jim, we've talked about this a lot, when you express yourself by giving, you feel better. Your dopamine receptors are ignited. Your reward centers are ignited by the act of giving. So if you're stressed and you're working too hard, and you remember your aunt that you haven't given a gift to in the last year or so, you take 15 minutes and you'll send her a gift. You'll feel better and you'll go back to work. So the shopping break is going to replace or complement the coffee break.
That's interesting.
And
That's
I do
interesting.
think, and I agree with both of the fellows both saying about health and wellness and, Lululemon and the comfort. People will be shopping for themselves too. We're all trying to create this sort of wellness home, right? So whether it's you're out buying a new, Peloton bike to have in your home, or you want to, wear clothes that are comfortable while you're working, I do think that's going to be significant too. And then we also want to buy clothes sometimes to feel good about ourselves too. So we can't, I love, Lululemon, but I can't wear it every day, or, I'm going to lose sight of sort of who I am in the workforce, or who I am in the social world. And we don't want to lose sight of that either. Last night I was talking to somebody, very interesting theory. So they were saying the 1918 to 1920 pandemic, very similar to what's going on now, started the roaring 20s, where everybody just kind of just said, okay, that's it. So it will be interesting to see if we have something like that occur.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying we're going to go into a bacchanalia. And the other thing that we had at the end of the Spanish flu was the end of World War I. So you had this convergence that really helped create the Jazz Age, which then led to the Depression in many ways. So we'll see where that's.
Well, we'll come back to what comes next a little later, but if I look at my own shopping experience, thank goodness it's not a lot, but holiday time, I'm going to be shopping for my wife. I go into the store. Kathy, I confess that sometimes I see a belt or a tie that I might like that sort of sticks to me on the way out, or while I'm shopping, I go into Nordstrom's to buy her a particular jacket, and then I see a scarf and I see a nice faux necklace that I think would go with that. That I'm not doing now. So Alba, what's the consequence of that? That sticky stuff, the unplanned purchases, it seems to me we're going to be much more focused on a gift item, and the things that might have stuck to you on the way through the store aren't going to happen now.
Yeah, Jim, the assortment plannings had to rapidly shift. So if you go to the Nordstrom site now, it's about gifts and at home. So in the reality of that pickup, that has been a trend that's been continuing with online, and then it's accelerated where you're not having that other item. That being said, Costco's been amazingly successful with stimulating in store, and their assortment is tight and narrow, and they've been able to really get you back into the store with hot buys and finding stuff you didn't know you needed, online and offline. So I think it's just been more competitive, but this exploration problem is a problem because online you're so purpose driven, and you don't necessarily get that fulfilling experience. The last point is live streaming. So live streaming is a interesting, very, very important medium that's much more refined in China, but it's like bringing you the experience of the salesperson in your home. It's almost like QVC and HSN, but reinvented for Gen Z. And that's one thing that may bridge the gap. And retail and brands have to produce content, and our media companies now, in terms of helping and entertaining and educating.
The lines are blurring.
Yeah. Jim, what you're describing is really the attach rate, right? You went into buy one thing and then something else stuck to you. It doesn't exist in the same way clearly digitally, but there are analogs to it. So on a very basic level, when Amazon says people who bought this also bought that, that is a digital way to speak to your
attach rate
buying experience. And what it has that in the store, you'll have the salesperson say, hey, this really works together. But at Amazon, you have the social proof of many, or at least the illusory social proof that other people have bought this. And then, of course, then you've got the ability of algorithmically driven emails, hyper-personalized emails that send you an email that says, hey, Jim, you bought this yesterday online. We just got this item in that would go perfectly with it. So, those are two methods.
How to bridge that gap with digital innovation there.
Exactly.
I chatted the other day, Oliver, everybody. I chatted the other day with a young lady I've gotten to know in the last couple of years, and she runs an e-commerce company in China. And I'll give you an example of something they did, because everything's on WeChat. it has flavors of different kinds of commerce. Here's the example. So she has a gazillion followers on the site, and then she has these sub influencers that work beneath her. And 5 women got together. Most of our customers are women, heads of household, and she sent a group to Vietnam to look for the best shrimp farmers over there. And so there was a constant dialogue. Here we are now. It was a journey that you sort of went on following these people. And they found the best jumbo shrimp farmers in Vietnam. And they said, we got X amount of that. And they said, okay, now it's available for sale. And they sell out in like 34 minutes. But every shrimp in Vietnam was spoken for on that. But it was a whole sense of journey, community, sub-influencers, and then the anticipation, and then, okay, now you can buy, and they sell out, and the countdown goes quickly. So there's several elements: multi-level marketing, showbiz, anticipation, journey. Do you see commerce like that changing?
Well, Adam brings up some great points, and Jim, that's a great story with this intersection of happiness and what is happiness and utility. And for me, and what we think about also is pre-purchase and post-purchase, and thinking about the object and then what happens after, and also the thrill of the chase. What's really worked in retail is treasure hunt too. So TJ Maxx has clearly had decades of
Costco was built on the treasure hunt model.
Yeah, and the treasure hunt is a part of the journey that adds texture and in person. And this is, to me, hearing what you're saying is entertainment plus retail plus treasure hunt, and then also
plus community.
Yeah,
everything.
Learning about people's lives. And if you trust a brand, if you trust a retailer, you'll be more likely to want to be part of that whole experience. And influencers and TikTok plus Walmart, we're entering, new awesome eras where a lot of this demand creation is very decentralized, and people have low barriers to entry in terms of starting huge followings because they're interesting to other people.
Yeah, I would say what you described is fascinating, Jim. It is, to coin a word, it's a shopalog. It's a combination of a travelog and a shopping experience. And what it does is it's sort of the opposite or the inverse of the Costco treasure hunt. Costco treasure hunt, you don't know what you're going to find, and voila, here it is. Here, you kind of know what you're going to find, but it's the journey to getting there. It's the backstory. It's the authenticity, to use your word. And it is the drama. It is sort of Anthony Bourdain meets QVC, right?
Yeah.
You're immersed in an experience. And the irony is what you're buying is consumable. You're going to eat those, you're going to fry those shrimp up in your wok, and they're going to be gone in 20 minutes. But that's okay, because the experience is so enriched by the backstory.
Well, to Oliver's point, the pre and post experience.
Starbucks has been the master at that. I mean, they took the commodity of coffee and did wonderful videos taking you to Costa Rica and showing you how the arrabbiata is grown and why it's worth $5 when nobody thought it would be worth. So I think the value exchange, to me, is what's interesting here. And what that little example provided, Jim, is the value exchange, where it's extraordinary, from the brand to the consumer, and then the consumer will spend a premium for that investment.
Oliver, you spoke often about, well, Adam, you reminded me recently about a book called Winner Take All, and Oliver, you modified that 15-year-old book's theory to be winner take most. A little color on who you think is taking most now?
Yeah, we see a lot of examples, Jim, where Walmart, Target, have the capital and the free cash flow and the dividends and the global stature to drive automation, AI, and robotics. And basically, there's so much pressure on retail from Amazon and their cost of capital, and the speed and delivery times required, where the big have gotten bigger, and the consumer, as well as Amazon, have really forced the issue, over multiple years with speed. And then we've worked on a lot of new companies like Peloton, like Farfetch, like The RealReal. They're not profitable. So it's winner take most because these large platforms are not yet profitable. So you have to raise the capital and or have the scale. And the trick to these platforms becoming profitable is a lot of growth, 20 to 40% growth at a lot of these platforms. So not being profitable at some of these large players, is a barrier to entry. Winner taking most. We'll have bifurcation because we'll have hyper specialization, but also consolidation.
Yeah. But,
Louis Vuitton, Richemont, they're
But the point you made about the cost of capital,
Yeah.
a little bit more there. Walmart and Target had predictable cash flows. Amazon disrupts it. Did they divert capital that would have otherwise gone to stock repurchasing or returning it to shareholders in some way? Did they get permission to repurpose capital to fight the fight?
Yeah, there's been interesting ways to approach this, but Amazon was given a very, very high PE multiple, and when they can use the equity as acquisition currency and also compensate employees with stock, that's a huge benefit because it's a war for talent. At the same time,
they get rid of that.
They've
Yes.
Walmart and Target had to reprice their their margins because they had to offer so much more to the consumer and also reinvent their business models to be digital plus physical. And that was painful. And they made a lot of mistakes. Like Target's website used to be run by Amazon, and Walmart used to think e-com was just a store, like a large store. So there's and organizations have to be retooled. So I think you had that example of a disruptor, and then you have Walmart's PE multiple expanding from 12 times to 15 times to 24 times as people appreciate.
Over what period of time?
Over about the past 3 to 4 years. When they first did the Jet.com deal, everybody was like, what the heck? Why did they do this deal? It's too expensive, and Walmart's an old school company and Amazon's going to go away. So the stock prices matter in terms of valuation and ROIC, and also the ability to compete. And that's a dynamic that's reflected in a stock price every day.
So I have a question for you, Oliver, about stock. It's your world. But here's my question. So companies that have a history, Flowers, Scott's Miracle Grower, I'm on the board, doesn't matter. Those companies seem to me are valued every day. Somebody's looking, you and others saying, how much is Flowers worth today? Maybe worth $1 more, $1 less than yesterday. Companies like Amazon, Peloton are valued once every 2 years, or whatever that number is, not every day. And then there's a moment in time, some epiphany, when somebody says, holy, this is ridiculously overvalued, and then they crash. But they're not valued every day in the same way that legacy businesses are. Is that a fair way of looking at it? That the emotion drives,
Adam, I think
the emotion drives the valuation. Amazon, one event could all of a sudden turn it upside down.
Well, the market's ultimately a voting machine over time. So fundamentals will align with earnings, going up or down over time. Adam, there's probably very, very strong nuances in each stock where we have real judgments about, what I'm always looking at. Is it a good company? It's a different question from is it a good stock or not? You can be a good or bad company, but you can be a good or bad stock. And those are two different questions. Also, at each day, there are certain expectations built in. So most of the time it's revenue and top line growth, and there's a certain bar that this group of investors for this stock expect. And there's the marginal question of what do the marginal people expect? Do they expect a plus 20 or 21?
So, but if you're, I understand value eventually, when the tide goes out, you see who's naked, Benjamin Graham, all of that. But there is a certain permission cushion that's granted to certain companies that others don't have.
Well, it depends on your investor base and who really owns you and who you can attract or repel and what you said versus what you can do. So part of that is judgment, part of that is real. And then what's real, I'm an analyst, but I also, went to Wharton, and efficient market theory is important too. So I'll make judgments in advance and hopefully I'm right, but I'm wrong plenty of times too.
But are you pained by the fact that the time frame that maybe that's compressed now, but the time frame, the efficient market theory to manifest itself could cause a lot of pain in the interim?
for sure. And who does volatility benefit or not? And it's a different answer, different shareholders.
Yeah.
But you're ultimately, the valuation is a reflection of the discounted cash flow. So people are putting assessments on the terminal value, and winner take all or not, or winner take most, or where does this latest data point do to my financial model?
Yeah, so I'm working just, as an example of that, unnamed, but I'm working with a tech company in Israel that's public, that is doing far better than the stock price and the EBITDA would indicate. And the CEO keeps saying, the street is basically saying that we're going to be out of business in 3 years because that's the value they're giving
That
us.
happened in COVID, right? You saw like lots of businesses that did not go bankrupt, and you could have made, multiples of.
Yes.
And if you do the hard work around liquidity and cash flow and the ability to raise funds, it's very, very hard with the reality of forecasting, like, because we didn't know what you should touch in the beginning of this. So the uncertainty is the certainty.
Yeah, that's the blood.
A couple of more areas we'd love to touch on while we have you guys locked up here. Kathy, in your world, you and I have chatted about this a bunch. Guys, tell Kathy, what's your customer base, your community of people that you serve? How are they thinking differently? If they are thinking differently, it's an assumption on my part about philanthropy in this coming up on this end of year season. How has philanthropy changed for your client base? And Adam and Oliver, your thoughts after Kathy gives us a level set here.
Sure. So for my client base, most of my clients are ultra high net worth. So they're the ones that are going to the stores and buying the products that Oliver is, analyzing and researching the companies. In terms of philanthropy, there's a couple of things. I think clients are thinking about a lot of different pieces right now. One is taxes and how is that going to impact? And so from a philanthropic standpoint, there's a lot of different pieces that fall into that, right? There's the tax savings of philanthropy. There's the goodness of what they're doing. There's like lots of different pieces that go into play when someone's considering philanthropy. But with the market still, doing well and having this, 10-year run per se, yes, we've had ups and downs, but mostly we've been up quite a bit over the last 10 years. There's a lot of appreciated stock in there. We don't know what tax impact is coming next year. We don't know if capital gains tax will be disrupted. We don't know if some of their estate planning needs to change. So giving this year and considering taking some cap gains off the table are some of the things that we're discussing and thinking about. How has it changed in terms of philanthropy? I think people are looking for things that really matter, and they want to see the impact. So when you see food scarcity and underserved communities, I think there's a lot of opportunities for people to step up and help. And whether they're doing it with dollars or gifting stock or giving time and literally, helping to serve, those are the different ways they're doing it. But I do think the impact of COVID, and it's been a year of reevaluating everything, reframing and rethinking about what's important to us as individuals and how we can connect with the values that we have and the community that surrounds us.
Adam, do you see any changes in the way people are thinking about philanthropy?
Just to build on that, I think that clearly the media has pointed out, as has the data, that the virus has highlighted fault lines in American society. Just look at who's been affected by this. So I think just like the virus has disrupted everything, including our understanding of underserved communities, I think philanthropically people are questioning their traditional sources of giving. So, and they're saying, wait a minute, the museums and the hospitals, all these things matter, hospitals particularly, but yet, how do I have more impact immediately? Because the drama of, you watch the news and the drumbeat is just so overwhelming of the pain of so many of these families and the lack of access to medical care and all of these burning platforms. And you wonder, should I take some of the money that I've traditionally given to my favorite charities my school or my museum or whatever it is and reapply it.
All of which are struggling to raise money in this environment,
Anyway,
right?
they're all struggling anyway. Everybody is struggling. But what do? I am so overwhelmed. I am so overstimulated by grief in many ways. I'm so overstimulated by need. How do I reset my priorities in a way that reflects who I am and my identity? I think that's the self-reflection that a lot of high net worth people that I'm speaking to are feeling internally.
Great
Oliver,
point.
let me ask you to take us by the hand and lead us forward. Your job is to look out into the future, use a data model, try and forecast the future. Adam is a futurist extraordinaire as well. So I'm going to ask you all to take us forward a year from now. And I was asked to write, and I did in Worth, my prediction, which was in the shorthand, that come next fall, we're all going to feel a lot better. And the premise of that I wrote back on Labor Day weekend was that therapeutics were getting better. Vaccines seemed to be that there would be 3 or 4 or 5 quite effective vaccines in the market by spring of 21. That were cockroaches. We learned to adapt and adjust, and that by this time next year, COVID seems to be in the rearview mirror. Not that it's gone, because it's always going to be here and it'll pop up in different forms, but it will feel 75% better, 75% that this is behind us. Now, fast forward into 2 months since then, we've seen therapeutics dramatically improve. We've seen vaccines now become real. But Kathy brought up the Spanish flu earlier, and I was stunned. My prediction was that we're going to feel better, but it's not going to be the same. So Oliver, is it going to be the same, or is it going to be what Adam predicted for us the other day, which is we're longing to forget?
Yeah, I agree with Adam. I'm optimistic. There's like pent up interest in seeing the best times we can ever. And also
Pent up interest in weddings, pent up interest in getting Kathy getting one of her many ball gowns on.
I think the fashion reads we're getting, it's been one of the most creative moments possible, where people have a lot of time alone and together in unique ways.
Yeah.
And people are changing the way and intensified many prior relationships in this crisis. So there's lots of opportunity, and our Callan healthcare team is optimistic like you are with the vaccine process. I mean, technically speaking, the supply chain.
Say it again, vaccine?
Well, I was just saying with the reality of the vaccination outlook is very good. That's all. And
yep.
Supply chain is something we're monitoring, because distribution will be something to watch, and also the willingness of people to take it or not. And so there will be psychological, non-science factors as well, as we watch that evolve. And then I was thinking about gifting and philanthropy. What I'm seeing is the rising importance of ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and also diversity and inclusion. And inclusion really means, being invited to the party, but also being able to dance and participate in the party. And that means companies thinking, boards thinking about internal, and not having unconscious bias in the workplace to maximize talent and opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with this shareholder to stakeholder point of view, which is bigger picture too. So
yes.
That's accelerating, and it's starting. Europe is ahead of us, but I think that it will be part of what Wall Street needs to do too.
Yeah, just 2 quick points. One is, Kathleen, you were talking about your clients, and related to philanthropy, we're seeing the ongoing $1 trillion transference of wealth from the dying boomers to the next generation, and that's going to transform philanthropy, because all the values that you just talked about are going to be reflected in the family offices. Are radically changing, and it's all changing. So in terms of where
And they're
we'll
moving
be,
to.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, they're moving towards ESG, like Oliver was saying too. And I always say you have to look where we're going, not where we are today. And just by virtue of the interest in ESG investing, you need to move into that now, whether or not you're passionate about it, because that is where you're going to see the growth and the returns.
Yeah.
Although most people are passionate about it as well.
Yes, usually goes hand in hand, don't you think? Yes. And
Yes.
what's going to happen when more money flows into it, then and the performances get better, then you're going to just see an increasing, those like
So,
Amy Filmini, who started this, years ago, when it was an outlier, now it's going to become mainstream.
so Kathy, you talked
Agreed.
about how the philanthropy is changing as a result of COVID and the acceleration of the social trends within that. The stakeholder shareholder is a whole other set of discussions we need to have. So, like we learned in reading about the Spanish flu, which frankly I didn't hear a lot about before I got out some books when COVID arrived. But Adam, the Roaring Twenties, as Kathy pointed out, was sort of an outgrowth of the end of World War One and the Spanish flu. And by the way, they're related. The Spanish flu didn't start in Spain; it started in Kansas, and we so kindly brought it to Europe, I'm told.
That's true.
But will we be happy to forget?
Americans notoriously have short-term memories. Europeans laugh at us. You go into a little European village and there's a statue for somebody who died in a war in the 14th century, and we think we are, and we do have historical amnesia. I think that'll make it easier for us to put the flu behind us. But I think psychologically, not the flu, I'm sorry, the virus. I think the virus will make each of us more of who we are. So if you were a planner and you were nervous about the future, you will be more like that. And if you believed in living in the moment and life will take care of itself and life is short, I'm going to enjoy, you will be more like that. So I think it'll make us, and it'll create an intensification of who we are. And since who we are people who tend to forget, I think we will see our version of the Roaring Twenties. And culturally, there was a lot of, of dances that emerged. There was a kind of a release of sexual tension because we were still in many ways, proto-Victorians before World War One. Mass media really was created, radio and so forth. The movies exploded. So it'll be interesting to see, and now we've got more technology platforms than ever, to see the intersection of the post-viral mindset and technology, which has implications for retail, which has implications for, we've talked about this a lot, Jim, where we live, how houses are built, how we design our lives.
Yep.
But I think that the other thing that's important, I think, is this, the 95%, because to your point, Oliver, about people saying, I won't take a vaccine. When people say it's going to be 50, 60% effective, I heard a lot of that. And I think we'll still hear some. But I think the 90 to 95% immunization effectiveness of the vaccine is going to squash some of the anti-vaxxers. And I think that the speed of developing this vaccine, and the fact that the messenger RNA approach is not limited to this particular COVID SARS-2 virus, but is applicable to other pandemics that might happen, means that we will be able to more quickly come up with vaccines and hopefully control the next one and the next one and the next one. That'll give people much more licentious freedom to act out.
Well, I learned a lot. I have more questions. Kathy, I wrote down a whole bunch of new phrases that I picked up, including historical amnesia. Paul, how do you bet on this? Oliver says that we're going to break out and there's going to be good times ahead. Let the band strike up. The market's at historical highs. I'm going to go out and buy some vial manufacturers and needle manufacturers because they seem to be well poised here. Paul, how do you summarize this?
I have a really hard time trying to summarize it. I was keeping up with all the questions that were being asked, and just when we started to get one, either it was answered or we were off yet to the other topic. So this was a fast-moving discussion that covered a ton. One question though, Jim, that did come in, and it's maybe not a way to summarize it, but a way to put it back to all of you, including yourself, Jim, is there's a question about, clearly you're all experts in the matter of gifting. So how are you personally going to change, if at all, your approach to gifting this season? And maybe just a question to each one of you. Adam, over to you.
So I'm going to think about the psychology of whom I'm giving gifts to. I think there are people who on my list who want to be on the escapist, I'm going to live for tomorrow side, and they'll get a different kind of a gift. And there are people who are more sort of in the moment, a little more practical, and they'll get the the Lululemon kind of a gift. So I think I'm going to try to be as responsive as I can, sort of to the mindset, because everybody is so full of anxiety at this moment. So how can a gift relieve stress? It can relieve stress by giving people hope for the future, or it could relieve stress by making the moment more comfortable.
Yep. Well put.
So helpful. Kathy, how about yourself?
So this is general gifts, not just like gifting philanthropy gifts, right?
General gifts.
Okay. Yeah, I think that for me, it's a matter of giving things that are for family, like things that are useful in this new quote on, time normal frame. And also then things that are special that let them know, something special about them. But it is interesting, for friends and so forth. I'm a big gift giver. I'm a giver. I know we all have our different things, but for Mother's Day, when everybody was still locked down, I had a friend of mine is a designer, dress designer, and she put together hundreds of masks that she was selling, and she's beautiful fabric. So I bought a bunch of her gifts. I went and bought little bags. I got little things printed on and a little saying that I put on the bags, and I hand delivered 50 of these bags with masks in them to my girlfriends who are mothers, and we can't get together now. I hope we see each other, soon, thinking of you, and be safe. And I think those are the kind of gifts that that you want to make an impact and let people know how much they matter to you. So to be able to do it in a way that is meaningful is important.
Well, that's why people want to be her friend and why they want to be her client.
Yeah, so wonderful.
Okay.
I just got a gift idea. I gotta call you and figure out how to do this, but just beautiful. Oliver, you've seen so much, you're researching so much.
Yeah.
The next best thing is out there and you're the one that knows about it. Are you doing something differently this season?
I'm not really a great cook, but I've been baking in terms of giving people some of my creations. And so I've been getting more familiar with flour and doing that with different cakes. And then I think I've had fun with advent calendars, giving them to friends and different ones, whether that be food or beauty, because we can open the doors together. And then I think, there's little luxuries, like Tiffany has fun coffee cups and Saint Laurent has a coffee mug, which kind of integrates like home and a little luxury. And then I think there's some time-saving kitchen devices that are interesting, like air fryers and sous vide.
Yeah.
And we cover Kohl's stock, and I think those can be like hacks that can actually help your life. So I'm just intrigued by those too.
I'm addicted to the air fryer. My French fry count in the family's gone up considerably, I'm sad to say. And Jim, you spent a professional lifetime thinking about this very question. How does gifting change for you this season?
Well, it doesn't. It's about experiences. And I'll end with this. Thanksgiving is upon us. And I have 3 grown kids. I have 6 grandkids. And we're very lucky, Mary Lou and I, they all live nearby. And so we're having them all over for an outdoor Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a tailgate Thanksgiving. We'll do it outdoors, weather permitting.
I'll make sure I send you a propane heater as a gift.
Thank you. And I decided I'm inventing Papa's turkey tacos this year. So when they come over, it'll be early in the day to try and get some good weather. And I'm giving them all turkey tacos. And the grandkids seem to be excited about Papa's turkey tacos. So that's where we're going.
I love it.
Sounds great.
It's terrific. Well, everybody, again, thank you on behalf of everybody at Worth for your time and such a great conversation. It could have gone on for hours, and all of the takeaways are that we need to follow up with a couple of subsector conversations that were housed in this. And speaking of, we actually have a little bit of a continuance. It's December 3rd, and it's the CEO and founder of Otherland, Abigail Cook-Stone, talking about how interiors and experiences among everyone's interiors are going to change, and no doubt a thread of something that we're going to keep talking about through this. But thank you everybody that's joined, and for everyone that participated, and have a wonderful holiday season, and hopefully we're better gift givers and givers because of it.
Happy Thanksgiving all.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.